Yo, what's going on, guys? CultofMush back at it with a $1,000 gaming PC build. I actually haven't done a $1,000 build in around 6 to 7 months. A lot of you guys have been requesting me to update it, and I didn't even realize that it's been that long since my last $1,000 build. Now, in actuality, currently this build comes out to around $1,100 retail, but some of these parts I would not pay the current retail price, and I'll make note of that when I go over the said parts. With some of these, I've just seen them on sale for so much lower, and they're parts that go on sale very frequently. And with Black Friday upon us, if you wait a few weeks, chances are you can get something very similar to this build and probably knock off $100 or even $200. So with that being said, let's get right into this with the CPU. For the CPU of this build, obviously I had to go with the Intel Core i5-6600K 3.5 GHz quad-core processor. This CPU still comes at a relatively hefty price of $235. This is one of the parts that I have seen cheaper, but current retail is $235, which is very expensive for an i5-6600K, at least in my opinion. Yes, it's a beast of a CPU, that's why it's in this build. But ideally, I'd like to see this CPU around $215 to $220, and that's where it's a really good buy. Still at $235, it's one hell of a CPU, especially if you pair it up with a good enough graphics card, which in this build you're definitely gonna have. Now, with the i5-6600K, it does not come with a stock cooler, and it being a K-series CPU, you don't want to use a stock cooler anyway. So at the very least, pick up something like a Cooler Master Hyper 212 EVO or the CryoRig H7. Those are very cheap CPU coolers that'll let you do some modest overclocking, but if you want to do something more extensive, you might want to look into liquid cooling or a higher end cooler. But that isn't completely necessary unless you're trying to get the most possible out of your 6600K. With a basic cooler like the Hyper 212 EVO or the CryoRig H7, you can still bring it up to around 3.9, 4.0 GHz, probably even a little bit higher than that, and it's gonna run like an absolute dream. Moving on to the motherboard, I went with the MSI Z170-A Pro ATX LJ1151 motherboard. Now, this is a Z170 board that comes in at relatively cheap, $115, which comparatively, a lot of the Z170 boards go for like $130, $140, $150, even north of that. And with a budget like this, you definitely wanted to grab a Z170 board, but you didn't need anything crazy. This one has everything you want out of it. It's got 4 RAM slots up to DDR4 3200, up to 64 gigabytes of max memory supported. It's got RAID support, no SLI support, which isn't that big of a deal, because right now in the current PC gaming climate, you are much better off with a single GPU solution, so that shouldn't be too big of a deal. You've also got 2 SATA 6 gigabit per second ports and 2 SATA Express ports and onboard USB 3 headers. The motherboard also comes in a sleek black look, so for $115, this is the perfect kind of a motherboard in a $1,000 build. Moving on to memory, this is one of the areas where it's kind of overpriced in my opinion. The G.Skill Ripjaws V-Series 16 gigabytes, 2 8 gigabyte sticks of RAM, DDR4 2133. Right now, it's going for around $90, which is very expensive for a DDR4 16 gigabytes of RAM. Comparatively speaking to about 2 years ago, it's not that expensive, but I've been seeing 16 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM as low as $75, and by Black Friday time, I could easily see a decent kit of DDR4 RAM being like $70. So right now, it is around $90, which in my opinion is a little bit too high, but still 16 gigabytes of RAM in my opinion is perfect in a $1,000 build. Yes, 8 gigabytes of RAM can still get you by, but with how cheap 16 gigabytes of RAM is getting, and if you can find it discounted, it's just too good to pass up. And a lot of games recently are recommending 16 gigabytes of RAM. You look at higher end games like Deus Ex Mankind Divided, and 16 gigabytes of RAM does make a bit of a difference. And with future games coming out, you're gonna start noticing that 16 gigabytes is gonna become more and more prominent in the recommended listings on a lot of games. And if you're dropping this kind of money on a PC, you might as well just get it right off the bat. Moving on to storage, obviously you're gonna go with a mechanical drive and an SSD. First of all, for the mechanical drive, pick up the Western Digital Caviar Blue 1TB. This is the go-to mechanical hard drive on a budget. It's $48 for a terabyte of storage. This is going to be your mass storage device where you download all your games, excess media like your movies, music, all that kind of stuff you can put on the mechanical hard drive. For the SSD, the Samsung 850 EVO-Series 250 gigabyte solid state drive is available for around $90, which honestly is a bit expensive. I could see this also being very cheap during Black Friday. If not the 850 EVO in particular, there will definitely be a 250 gigabyte SSD that you can pick up on the cheap. SSDs is something that goes on sale all the time, and $90 for 250 gigabytes, while at face value that is very good, I could see it being far cheaper than that in a few weeks. Regardless, getting that 250 gigabyte SSD and the 1TB mechanical hard drive is a very solid solution, and with it being a 250 gigabyte SSD, you can put your OS on there as well as your key applications. If you decide to pick up a 120 gigabyte SSD, I noticed it it when I had a 120GB SSD is that you'll just find it very limiting. After you download the OS and some applications, you're down to like 20 gigabytes, and that's just not gonna fly for most people if you want to download any games on there. So 250 gigabytes I think is a really good amount to go with. Moving on to the video card, had to go with the Gigabyte GeForce GTX 1070. The 8GB model is available for around $380. This is another one where I could very well see Black Friday week, it could be down to $330, $340, around there. And right now, the GTX 1070s also do come with a free copy of Gears of War 4, so that is a very solid addition. And while Microsoft games have been relatively shoddy on PC, Gears 4 is one that absolutely delivered by all accounts. It just runs really, really well. And the game itself, I haven't played it personally, but I've heard it's very good. So to get a free $60 game on top of the GTX 1070, which is a monster of a video card, I have a lot of benchmarks on my channel if you want to check those out. It's just an amazing video card. Whether you're gaming at 1080p or 1440p, this GPU does a really solid job, and I want to say in all games, but you really can't say that because there are games that unfortunately just aren't up to par as far as good porting goes. But for the most part, and even with a lot of those games that aren't the best ports, the 1070 does amazingly well on them, and it is a good PC version. The 1070 will just eat through it. And currently for the $380 price tag, to get a free copy of Gears 4, to get a beast of a GPU like this, very solid pickup. And like I said, come Black Friday weekend, Cyber Monday too, you could be seeing a GPU like this for a bit cheaper. Next up for the power supply, the SeaSonic S12 620 watt 80 plus bronze certified power supply for $62. This is going to be a perfectly fine power supply. Like I said, the motherboard won't allow you to go for an SLI configuration, and honestly, in my opinion, an SLI configuration isn't ideal. A lot of games have just really abandoned it, and it's not going to give you that performance increase that a lot of people, when you're dropping double the price on a GPU solution, in my opinion, it's just not worth it. But I've talked about that enough. This 620 watt power supply is going to power the build no problem. The 6600K is super power efficient, and the 1070, being as high end of a video card it is, it's also very, very power efficient, and you won't be going above like 500 watts with this configuration. Finally, for the case, you're going to go with the NZXT S340. In my opinion, the black and red color scheme is going to look really good with the rest of this build. I didn't really go too hard working on the color scheme of this build, but it should still look very nice, and the S340 has been one of the most prominent mid-tower cases on the market, and it's a great case for those of you that don't want to spend over $100, which I really don't think is essential in a PC build, especially one that is around $1,000. So that's gonna wrap up this video, guys. Hope you enjoyed. This is a kick-ass build for $1,000. It's actually kind of close to what I have. In all honesty, it's a bit better than what I have since I have an older generation i5. I have only 8GB of RAM, and I do have the 1070, and I'm getting very, very good gaming performance. So you guys should be getting just as good as me with this build, and a little bit better than that in actuality. So as always, guys, thanks for watching. If you have a request for a future video, you can leave that in the comment section down below, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.